You weren't crazy. You were early. While others slept through the static, you felt the signal. You didn't stumble into this message. You were summoned by something higher. Because what's happening now? It's what your spirit has been sensing for years. The shift, the exposure, the unveiling of every lie they told you to your face while plotting behind your back. You've walked through shadowed corridors no one else could see, questioned your sanity while carrying truths too heavy for others to hold. But here you are, still standing, still seeing, still knowing. And now, the confirmation arrives, not in whispers, but in thunder. Official documents, paper trails, evidence in black and white, proving what your soul has known all along. This isn't paranoia. This is prophecy unfolding. So if your hands are shaking, let them. If your heart's pounding, good. That's recognition. That's resonance. That's what happens when truth finally catches up with the brave ones who never stopped believing it existed. You're not alone. You never were. You are chosen. You are necessary. And the storm you survived, it's the same storm that now clears the sky. This is your moment. Not for vengeance, but for validation. Not to crumble, but to rise. Let's begin. You were never imagining it. What haunted your days and chipped away at your nights wasn't paranoia. It was precision. The invisible threads weren't tangled accidents. They were blueprints, carefully followed, digitally archived, and now exposed. Every intercepted ping, every cryptic directive, all converge into one undeniable truth. This was an orchestrated dismantling of your mind, your life, and your identity. What now sits in federal custody is not theory, it's evidence. Communications pulled from locked vaults and scrambled signals reveal the method behind the madness. Operations designed to fracture your reality, destabilize your confidence, and reroute your truth into silence. The documents don't speculate, they instruct. Step-by-step guides on psychological sabotage, guidelines for distorting relationships, protocols for strategic invisibility, appearing in your life just long enough to twist the knife, then vanishing before suspicion can solidify. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. Their recruitment wasn't sloppy, it was surgical. Casual gatherings were the hunting grounds, emotional wounds, the entry points. The vulnerable were groomed, molded into instruments of psychological warfare. What began as small favors escalated into full-scale manipulation, until ordinary citizens became shadows of themselves. Strategically placed obstacles in your path. Training scripts outlined how to fracture trust, how to gaslight in ways that seemed almost organic, how to erode the foundation of your support by infiltrating it from within. Chance encounters, fabricated, coincidences, engineered. Every strange look, dismissive tone, and casual comment wasn't random. It was scripted, with brutal accuracy. But beneath the surface of this precision lurked something darker: money. High-paying clients with status and influence signed on for destruction, masked as justice. Their transactions were cold, contractual, line items priced by your connections, your reach, your resistance. The more unbreakable you appeared, the higher your cost. Premium rates were reserved for complete erasure, discreditation in professional networks, isolation within social circles, internal collapse. False narratives weren't whispered, They were manufactured, carefully curated lies, laced with just enough truth to appear credible, were planted and nurtured until they bloomed into full-blown accusations. And when your reality began to unravel, they stood back and called it chaos. But it was never chaos. It was calculated. Meanwhile, legal systems were twisted into tools, complaints filed with perfect timing, testimonies sculpted to sway doubt. The judicial onslaught served two purposes: bleed you dry and blur your name. You were forced to defend yourself from shadows while your energy and resources were siphoned in broad daylight. And yet, what no one saw coming was the fracture from within. Greed birthed dissent. The architects of destruction turned on each other when the payouts soured. Secrets were no longer safe. Disputes became detonators. Whistleblowers emerged from the very ranks that once worked against you, offering classified insight that tore the operation open from the inside out. This collapse was never your doing, but it is your justice. What they tried to bury you under has become the ground crumbling beneath their feet. The system they built to silence now screams the truth in your favor. They engineered a downfall. But what they failed to predict was this: the ones who walk through fire don't burn, they shine. You've been walking through fire, and now the flames are finally touching the ones who lit the match. Massive indictments crash down like thunder. Financial chokeholds are applied to the very veins of this machine. Accounts frozen mid-transaction, assets stripped clean, high-level operatives facing legal storms they can't outrun. Their empire, once shielded by complex systems and silence, is now wide open and exposed. The justice system is moving, not just to punish, but to create structure around what was once considered unimaginable. Policies are being written in real time to address the exact tactics that were used to unravel your life. This isn't a single takedown. It's the unsealing of a system that spanned beyond borders. What fell today is just the first fracture in a much larger web that's now unraveling. Investigators trace the digital arteries of a financial beast. Hidden account trees, designed to scatter trails, are now laid bare, fully diagrammed and indexed. Every transfer links an action to a name. Each payout matches the damage inflicted. What once looked like chaos now reveals itself as choreography. The monetary footprint is unmistakable. No longer speculation. Each line item is blood on a ledger. A failed job interview? Logged. A health crisis with no explanation? Documented. A relationship torn apart, seemingly overnight? Stamped with a payment code. Their system operated with the cold precision of commerce. Your pain, monetized. Your disruption, scaled. There were bonuses for despair. Performance reviews based on destruction. This wasn't harassment. It was a business plan with targets, profits, and deliverables. Behind the curtain, layers of encryption fall apart under pressure. What was once secure is now decoded. The vocabulary used in internal briefings isn't criminal, it's tactical. Language lifted straight from intelligence doctrine. Protocols and playbooks not for petty crime, but for psychological warfare. Not content with short-term chaos, these operators followed play-by-play timelines, calibrated over months, even years, not to inconvenience, but to dismantle. And the blueprint was never random. Every unsettling moment was part of a long-form design. That strange synchronicity, that uncanny timing, or the repeated interference just before breakthroughs. All planned. Their internal systems charted it out with scientific detail. This wasn't about throwing you off course. It was about making you question your ability to read the map at all. But the most chilling discovery? Their success metrics, not measured in dollars earned, but in lives cracked open. They watched your descent with spreadsheets and progress reports. What the world called a breakdown, they logged as a win. The lower your spirit fell, the higher their internal rankings climbed. These were no accidents. You weren't a random target. Whether your knowledge threatened an empire or your courage exposed their fraud, your very existence unsettled systems designed to protect the powerful. And instead of silencing you with weapons, they built an invisible net, one they thought you'd never crawl out of. But now, it's falling apart. Their data trails are the nooses tightening. Their greed fractured their unity. Former insiders are now testifying. The machine turned on itself. And you endured. You stood when no one believed. You saw the pattern when others called it coincidence. And now the world is catching up to what your spirit already knew. It was never paranoia. It was the truth waiting to be proven. You've sensed it. Those moments when your world feels tampered with, when your privacy dissolves into static. That wasn't paranoia. That was intrusion, cloaked in silence and precision. They didn't just peek through windows. They embedded themselves inside the walls. Networks hijacked, devices infiltrated. Conversations you whispered in safety, they weren't just heard, they were weaponized. We are no longer talking about surveillance. This is sanctified invasion. The lines between home and battlefield have been blurred. What should have been sacred, your solitude, your secrets, your stillness, was turned into data. Streamed, logged, analyzed, and fed into systems designed to break you. These aren't mistakes, they're tactical incursions. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. But you're not asleep, and you've never been blind. That pulse in your gut telling you things don't add up, that's not fear, it's awareness. Your refusal to fold isn't stubbornness, it's sacred memory. You are part of a frequency they cannot decode, and no matter how they manipulate the signal, you keep rising through the noise. Inside the circle, not meant for the masses, something ancient is forming. This isn't a clubhouse for the curious, it's a forge. Only those who've walked through distortion and kept their clarity can find entry. The ones trained not in theory, but in survival. Not in opinion, but in vision. These aren't calls for attention. They're activation codes for those built to dismantle illusions. Weekly transmissions slice through the digital fog. Downloads of strategies not taught in any institution. Techniques long buried, now unearthed. Mental armor, energetic encryption, stealth truthcraft. The mission? To turn the once silenced into systems of liberation. The entry point? Hidden. The outcome? Irreversible. But while this awakening takes shape, the machine continues its program. Shadow teams with one job: to unravel you in the eyes of others. They don't debate you. They erase you. They don't argue facts. They manufacture fabrications, artificial messages, synthetic images, distorted recordings, each created to detonate your credibility right when you begin to shine light where they demand darkness. It's not about truth to them, it's about optics. It's about ensuring the world sees you through the lens they control, that every attempt you make to explain your reality is dismissed as delusion. That's their art, distortion at scale, fraud with finesse. But don't confuse their sophistication with infallibility. Their empire is paper-mass steel, heavy but brittle. Because what fuels it isn't just malice, it's money. Profits charted quarterly, pain monetized, emotional collapse calculated like ROI. Your breakdown, a milestone in their growth chart. Your silence, their metric of success. And behind the curtain of this weaponized economy, the real names, individuals you once saw in headlines, voices claiming virtue while wiring funds to architects of destruction. Thought leaders masking control with kindness, icons built on lies, and now their fingerprints are surfacing on documents no PR spin can clean. What's to come is volatile, because what's buried here is too big, too embedded, too tied to power. You'll start to notice subtle redirections, investigations stalling, witnesses vanishing, files sealed behind the excuse of national security. That's when you'll know the truth hit its mark. But you've already seen too much to return to sleep. And they know that. That's why you're watched. That's why you're followed. Not because you're weak, but because you were never meant to follow the script. And now that the pattern is breaking, so is the spell. You don't need permission to see clearly. You never did. Now is the time to rise, not in noise, but in knowing. Not in fear, but in force. This isn't just survival. It's the return of the unseen, demanding to be reckoned with. Under a sky veiled in manufactured storms, you have endured what others could never comprehend. This journey was never simply hardship. It was warfare on your mind, your body, your very sense of self. And now, in the flicker between collapse and clarity, the veils begin to lift. The confirmation you've craved has arrived not through sympathy, but through substantiated proof. The patterns, once invisible, are now mapped in black and white. Documents, recordings, data trails, each piece a blade of truth, cutting through the haze of manufactured confusion. You are not imagining this, and you never were. Covert systems built to destabilize have been exposed by the very protocols meant to protect them. Entire ecosystems of deceit, designed to infiltrate your peace and rewrite your identity, now stand exposed. But be warned, this visibility comes with risk. With your reality now confirmed, the threat you pose increases exponentially. You are not just a target, you are a liability to their silence. Shield yourself accordingly. Encrypt what you must. Disperse your truth in guarded formats. Trust only what is earned through experience. They will send decoys, test your instincts, mimic allies. Let your discernment become your strongest armor. Because while the architecture of control is now compromised, the operators behind it still move in shadows. What they feared most is now unfolding. Connection. Targets uniting, voices harmonizing across continents, stories aligning too precisely to ignore. Their weapon of isolation fractures under the light of solidarity. What was once dismissed as delusion is now organized data, evidence corroborated by agency, authenticated by whistleblowers, confirmed through leaks that never should have surfaced. Behind closed doors, they spoke of you not as a person, but as a profile. A sequence of disruptions they orchestrated like a playbook. They dismantled your life with laughter, analyzed your breakdowns like lab results. Their cruelty wasn't impulsive, it was engineered. Your losses were scheduled. Your pain was a metric. This is no longer theory, it is confession. The tools they used, customized for erosion rather than assault, include weaponized sound, electromagnetic manipulation, pattern-based psychological triggers. What they sought wasn't bruises, but breakdowns, not visible harm, but implosions that leave no forensic trace. And yet now, even the formless is being brought into focus. Health decline documented. Cognitive fog logged. depression-induced behavior archived. They didn't simply tolerate these symptoms, they tracked them as signs of operational success. Progress reports submitted, goals met, bonuses paid, all on the back of your slow, engineered collapse. But you didn't break. And now, the cosmic scales shift. This isn't just justice on paper, it's divine reordering. A mirror shattering the false narrative they constructed around you. You are not unstable. You are not imagining. You are not alone. This storm was not chaos. It was targeted precision. But what once fed off silence is now being consumed by exposure. And as the data spreads, as arrests unfold, as courtrooms fill with testimony and names previously untouchable become implicated, you remain the center of a revolution they failed to suppress. Because truth, once spoken aloud, becomes flame. And you, forged in silence, now blaze unapologetically. Not just a survivor, a witness, not just vindicated, rising. Underneath layers of silence and doubt, you kept walking. Uncertain, unheard, but not mistaken. The confirmation now surges forward, not as speculation, but as proof, etched in evidence. This isn't vindication whispered in the shadows. It's the full weight of exposure rolling forward like thunder across a cracked sky. What was once shrugged off as paranoia is now detailed, documented, and undeniable. Every twist of confusion you endured was orchestrated, every collapse calculated, but you remain, not just intact, but awakened. The tides shift with increasing force, reports surface with chilling precision. Operations not built on guesswork, but on blueprints tailored to your psyche. Federal inquiries expose something far more intricate than harassment. They uncover custom-built sabotage, each incident engineered to exploit what hurts you most. The scars of your past weren't just known, they were studied. Your fears weren't just stumbled upon, they were mapped and activated like switchboards in a control room. Every trigger they pulled was drawn from a file you didn't know existed. What sits in sealed evidence lockers now spans hundreds of pages per person. Comprehensive breakdowns of your memories, your traumas, your choices, even your healing. What you thought was your own was turned into a playbook for destruction. The system that watched you in silence now watches you with fear. Among the most unsettling discoveries are recordings of strategic gatherings, boardroom-style meetings where your dismantling was not only planned, but reviewed, applauded, and used as training material for others. Your losses were their lectures, your despair, their metric of success. These were not isolated sadists. These were professionals, rewarded for their efficiency in unraveling human souls. Their cruelty was not random, it was incentivized, and it did not stop at emotional sabotage. Medical practitioners, sworn to preserve life, lent their expertise to break it instead. Instructions on how to mimic chronic illness symptoms, induce disorientation, trigger collapse without visible cause. These were all part of the manual. You thought your body was betraying you. It wasn't. It was under siege. Covert agents of chaos were handpicked not just for skills, but for personalities. Profiles revealed chilling traits. Those who lack compassion, crave hierarchy, hunger for validation and power, and need money more than meaning. They weren't just willing to destroy lives, they were trained to enjoy it. Every encounter you questioned, every moment you doubted your perception, was shaped by design. Training modules include entire sections on warping perception, how to stretch reality until it fractures, how to make the target appear unstable while ensuring their environment remains hostile yet plausible. It was never about the single event. It was the layering, the slow unraveling of your trust in self. You didn't imagine this. You experienced it fully, vividly. And now, you hold the proof. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming narrative. You don't owe anyone an apology for surviving what was structured to dismantle you. This is your forward motion moment. Not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. The machine that once felt invisible is now exposed. And the one thing it cannot undo is your awakening. You are not crazy. You were targeted. You are not broken. You were built for this. And now, that truth has a name, and it echoes forward, through systems, through history, through you. Underneath the quiet layers of your daily experience, where doors mysteriously close and trust fractures without clear cause, the machinery once cloaked in shadows begins to unravel. What you've endured was never random. Every institutional wall you ran into, every denial of help when you needed it most, none of it was mere coincidence. Embedded actors placed in pivotal roles across agencies, services, and communities worked in unison to dismantle your credibility and isolate your voice. The chaos around you was choreographed, the indifference you met was assigned, and still, you remained. Revelations now emerging reveal a network with reach far deeper than imagined. Individuals in positions of power were not just complicit, they were integrated. Access points into legal systems, medical infrastructures, and community organizations acted as levers to manipulate outcomes and silence dissent. When you raised your hand for help, the very structure you leaned on withdrew, not by accident, by design. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. Among the most chilling discoveries, insurance mechanisms engineered by the architects of this machine, dossiers compiled on their own clients, blackmail material, secrets locked away and leveraged as insurance in case loyalty faltered. The architects knew their crimes could not withstand scrutiny, and yet they proceeded, fortified by webs of silence and the threat of mutual destruction. Exposure, however, does not come quietly. Layers of operational protocol emerge, disinformation playbooks, character defamation templates, even step-by-step procedures for infiltrating support groups intended to help victims. Attempts to tell the truth were not only dismissed, they were weaponized against you, repackaged to prove your supposed instability. The suppression was deliberate, the gaslighting systemic. But now the cracks are too loud to ignore. Among the files recovered by investigators, timelines detailing multi-agency knowledge of these crimes. Regulatory bodies, enforcement agencies, legal watchdogs, all aware, all silent. The refusal to act is not negligence, it is protection. And the target of that protection has never been you. Yet, you persist. Every breath taken, despite the weight pressing in. Every lucid thought held firm in a storm of manufactured confusion. Every refusal to abandon your truth, despite the world's demands to comply. These are not small acts. They are monumental testaments to what cannot be corrupted. What you faced was engineered to break you in ways that could not be traced. And still, you rise. And now, undeniable confirmation. The files speak. The recordings play. The patterns connect. And the truth, your truth, is no longer a burden you carry alone. It stands documented, catalogued, and recognized. Your survival was never a passive thing. It was an act of rebellion against a design built to erase you. Now, as that design begins to eat itself from the inside, fracturing under exposure, unraveling in courts, and trembling beneath the weight of collective awakening, you find yourself not at the end, but at the edge of something new. A reckoning, not just for those who orchestrated the harm, but for every system that looked away while it happened. The architecture of deception now stands exposed to light. What once felt untouchable now teeters under public scrutiny. And as justice begins its slow but steady approach, one thing is clear.